What's going on, guys? If you don't know me, you probably don't know me. This is a new channel, but I'm Jackson. I'm not really sure what I'm gonna do here, but this is like a new thing I'm doing. So it's just gonna be about talking about life, I guess, because I've been struggling with life things, and I feel like I just want to share them with the world. So, this video is gonna be more about detachment and changing your perspective of life in general, right? So by the way, my script is on this side. I'm gonna be looking over there a lot, so just ignore that. But within the past year, I've had a lot of emotional and mental breakthroughs, I believe. And one of those things was finding out that I had a predominantly inattentive ADHD, which is a whole other topic within itself. But I also came to realize a lot of what I thought was inner healing in the past was just avoidance masked as a solution. Does that make sense? I realized that a lot of things I experienced in my past had way more of an effect on me than I thought they did initially. Um, and I'm not gonna go into much detail about what happened in my past, but there were things like toxic relationships and issues with my father growing up, which definitely affected the way I feel now. Or, well, I guess I should say felt because I've been working a lot on my inner self recently, and I feel like I've been able to combat the issues and finally get them resolved within myself, right? So I feel like I'm doing pretty good. So yay me, but they still happened, which is annoying. Um, but because of those issues I experienced, I unfortunately have fallen victim to the curse of insecurity and attachment issues. And it is not very fun to realize it after it has messed up so many things good in your life. But I digress. So, you know. I really began to understand the majority of my issues were caused by my perception of love being a bit too skewed because of those life events. One of those things people don't talk about enough is the amount of shit you realize when you're finally in that healthy situation after experiencing so much toxicity in your life, and how easy it is to mess up that healthy situation because of your learned behaviors. One quote I like to say, or one quote I heard somewhere, was, "You may not have been responsible for the broken glass, but it is your job to clean it up." And, that really, I feel like that puts it into perspective, the entire attachment issue thing for me. Because, trauma is annoying, right? One thing I struggled with for a while was being able to sit with myself and look deeper to understand the things that trigger me and why I even felt triggered by it in the first place. These things would kind of lead me to experiencing anxious behaviors, which can also be classified as anxious attachment. I think we can all agree when I say trauma fucking sucks. In fact, what sucks even more is that trauma is absolutely free. But you know what's not free? Therapy. Yeah, it's not your fault whatsoever that your feelings weren't taken into consideration in the past, or that you seek approval or validation in order to be confident. But it is your fault when you allow those emotional needs to suffocate the other person, right? Having that anxiety in relationships can honestly feel like you're having a deep emotional reaction to a lot of things that you perceive as danger or abandonment in your relationships when they're not. It's just what you have in your head, right? You feel this consuming urge to cling on to the other person for dear life because if you don't, one day they will leave and forget about you and find somebody else. So there is an emotional regulation issue built into the people who struggle with this stuff, and it's especially hard for someone who is neurodivergent like myself, already struggling with emotional dysregulation from the neurodivergency. Plus this. So it can make the anxiety happen 10 times worse. You see what I'm saying? There's also times where the emotional explosion can cause a person to do things and say things that are very selfish, manipulative, and damaging for the long run. And these are all very impulsive things, by the way, because like I said, emotional dysregulation makes you do impulsive things, and it's not very fun to be on the receiving end, or the person doing them. But like once you realize that you're doing them, it's becomes more of an issue. Yeah, definitely for the person on the receiving end though. And so in the anxiously attached person's head, honestly, you are more than likely deeply in love with the person, but your behavior can come off as disrespectful, and it can lead to the other person not feeling the love you claim to have for them, right? So the issue is that anxiously attached people more than likely believe that what they are doing is beneficial to the longevity of the relationship, when in reality, everything they are doing is sabotaging the longevity of the relationship. Got it? It becomes a cycle, really. Basically, the anxiously attached person will perceive something that the partner does as a sign of abandonment and will, in turn, subconsciously activate their defense mechanisms in an attempt to save everything. In their head, they're doing the right thing to keep their partner in their life. But from the partner's perspective, they probably just had a bad day, or their own issues going on that have nothing to do with the anxious person, right? These behaviors can essentially drive their partner away because of the defense mechanisms, and they cause an emotional barrier between them. And it can also lead to problems that didn't even have to happen in the first place, right? Um, it can even go further to once they notice the behaviors that they caused through their defense mechanisms, they put up even more of a defense to combat that behavior, but doing so is driving them more farther away. You see what I'm saying? And typically they don't realize that they're causing these issues. They're very real. They're there, but they probably don't even realize it. That's the issue. Um, I have personally been in the situation before where, you know, I in the past I would see my trauma responses as reasonable crash outs. However, they were not reasonable crash outs. I was just having emotional dysregulation and decided to, impulsively act on my emotions, right? Which is not what you're supposed to do. You shouldn't do that. Um, and we definitely can blame media for, the skewed perception of love and what it means to be in a relationship in general. People glorify things. People glorify the anxious behaviors like having to text your partner 24/7, checking their location to see, where they are, and if they're not in the right location or if they're not somewhere that they know, they're gonna crash out. Being able to sleep without their partner being present in some way, like sleeping on the phone. I don't like doing that, but people do. I don't. And always feeling the need to put the partner between or before themselves and other loved ones. And of course, it depends on the situation. It depends on the loved one. It depends on what's going on. But the point being, you shouldn't be putting your partner on such a pedestal to where it's affecting how you view yourself and others that already were in your life and loved you before your partner. Um, and we really can't blame ourselves when society makes it seem like things like this are perfectly normal. And that leads me to talk about more about our perceptions of how we view things and how it heavily operates or how it heavily affects how we operate in everyday life. So, your perception is your reality. You hear me? Your perception is your reality. This means that whatever we as humans perceive as right and wrong will be our complete reality. Humans typically exhibit learned behaviors from things that they've seen or experienced in the past. So, if the relationship someone has been in or seen have lots of toxic behaviors, then that's all that person will know, right? So because of that, their perception of love will be very skewed because of those relationships they've experienced in their life, whether it be familial or romantic relationships. We also need to remember that our point of view is just one point of view. It's not the only point of view. Everyone has their own point of view, and we need to be able to understand those different points of views and be more understanding and loving when presented with those points of views. We can't let ourselves think that our perceived happiness is the one and only way to be happy, because it's not. There's many ways to be happy. You might think that you can't be happy without somebody, but you very much can be. You know what I mean? Sometimes our egos want to get in the way of that too, and with the way we handle criticism, right? And that can play a part in causing the anxiety as well, because when you let your ego take over, you can't see past your ego. You can't see past what you think in your head. You just can't think logically, Um, and we might always want to believe that we're always doing the right thing, doing the best that we can. But being unable to hear out other points of views when it comes to our behavior can lead to defense mechanisms blocking any room for real improvement, right? And something I've started doing a lot more is journaling. Um, and I journal my thoughts and emotions as I feel them. I used to be very skeptical of the whole journaling thing personally, honestly. I didn't really want to journal because I'm like, what's the point? But as I actually did it, I saw the point. Um, and when you just allow your thoughts to just freely flow on paper and writing them out as you think them, it actually helps you out a lot, especially with your emotional regulation. So if you have ADHD like me, it'll help. Well, for me it does. I'm not. It won't help everybody, obviously, but for me it helps, right? If you are someone who struggles with anxious attachment like I did as well, then I would highly recommend journaling. And you can also use this to identify what your triggers are and where those triggers originated from to be able to understand the broad picture or the more broad perspective of how you feel in your emotions. Being able to see my own thoughts written out allows me to be fully present with the thoughts that I'm having and fully analyze the why I'm thinking the way I do. You'd be surprised about how much of a weight will be lifted off your shoulders by the time you start to identify everything and realize that it's been affecting your life in more ways than one. You know, um, I also recommend writing down things you see in your future and what you need to get done there, outside of a relationship. I personally struggle heavily with being able to or set my own boundaries and not feel like I'm asking for too much when I do set those boundaries. Um, and that could boil down to my issues with people pleasing as well. Not to clock myself, but you know, and it's especially hard when it comes to relationships because there have been times where I will just go along with everything my significant other says or does because I feel like that was the best way to make them happy, right? But in turn, I was unable to act or think for myself, and that's not okay. Um, so all that to say, you don't have to make yourself become a version of a person just to appease your partner. You can completely be yourself, and if that person is meant to stay in your life, then they will accept you for all that you are. Understand? You should also be able to detach yourself from your trauma. We subconsciously allow ourselves to be defined by our trauma. And this can cause a lot of issues when we realize that running away from the trauma can cause the knife to sink deeper. Can cause the knife to sink deeper. Um, and learning how to detach yourself will it can allow you to see the bigger picture in many situations and to separate your emotions from the reality of things. Because your emotions are not the reality all the time, unfortunately. It's kind of hard to hear that, and tell yourself that, but it's true. So I would say, some things I would recommend, just little things I would do. Being on your phone less throughout the day, figuring things that you're passionate about and putting more time into those things, going for a walk or getting consistent in the gym, and like I said, journaling the way you feel. And there's many other things too, but those are just to name a few. Being able to detach will allow you to realize that the world doesn't revolve around you or that your world doesn't revolve around someone else. You are your own person, and you need to be able to think freely and do things that benefit you in the long run. There's so much to life that has potential to make us the happiest we've ever been, and being able to regain your individuality will allow you to find what brings you long term happiness. That person not sticking around the way you had hoped may suck, but your life is not over, nor will it ever be because of emotions. Gen Z definitely has a lot of work to do when it comes to figuring out the type of behaviors we should glorify, and that will definitely come with time. But the best thing we can do is to help ourselves, sorry, the best thing we can do is to help ourselves understand that what we really need to be doing in life is what is the healthiest option for us. Not what society says is healthy. Do what we think is healthy, because it's healthy for us. One more quote I want to say. I heard, I forgot where, but basically, one person's dream can be another person's nightmare. Meaning, what you might dream for because of your anxiety can be someone else's nightmare from the receiving end. Understand that? Because, yeah, what you, like I said, you might be thinking you're doing everything right, but from the other person's perspective, you're not doing everything right. You're doing lots of things wrong, and it's making a lot of issues, causing lots of issues. Um, but yeah, that's just my little rant. Nothing crazy. I just felt like getting on here and talking because I like to talk into a microphone. So if you guys like this, then let me know. I guess. And I guess I can do more things like this just because I like to talk about life things like philosophy, psychology, um, politics, especially recently. But yeah. So if you guys want more, let me know. If if you found any value out of this video, let me know. Um, but until next time, I'll see y'all later. Like I said, my name is Jackson. I'll see y'all later.